So, I've spoken to a lot of people who go, well, I've got these issues in my life that I want to sort out, but I had a great childhood. My childhood was fine. There was no abuse. I knew my parents loved me, so I don't know what it could be. All right. And then the final question for today. So this came from a post in or comment in the Facebook group. So thank you for this. Matt Hunter says, do you discuss developmental trauma? He says, I mean the subtle kind that leaves trauma, but with no memories, like emotional neglect, for example. May not have a single memory, but is built up continuously over the early years. So thank you so much for this, Matt. It's such an important topic. I actually call that kind of trauma hidden trauma. And the reason I call it hidden trauma is because it's not recognized as trauma for the most part. So you've mentioned emotional neglect, and I would add another great example of this is the silent treatment, because that is even less recognized. So people think, the silent treatment it's not abuse and it's not traumatic because it's just your parents upset, so they're not talking to you. But if you look at the unconscious part of the brain, the parent not talking to me means danger. It means my life is in danger. So part of our survival instinct is that these people who are supposed to be protecting us are happy with and approve of us and love us, because otherwise they will reject us, we'll be kicked out of the tribe, and we'll die because we're not designed to survive on our own. So this is one of the hidden trauma is one of the areas that people underestimate. So, I've spoken to a lot of people who go, well, I've got these issues in my life that I want to sort out, but I had a great childhood. My childhood was fine. There was no abuse. I knew my parents loved me, so I don't know what it could be. And then you look at things like, what did your parents do when they were upset? How were you punished when you did something wrong? Were your parents physically affectionate? Did you feel safe? Did you feel loved and supported and respected? Those are all the qualities that lay the foundation for a healthy, happy, successful adult. So if there's any of those aspects missing, then that definitely does cause the trauma we're talking about, that hidden trauma, or that what Matt referred to as developmental trauma. So developmental trauma is about that word. It relates to the development of the brain. So in the early years, the physical development of the brain is impacted by those stress chemicals that cause trauma, traumatic. As they're produced in traumatic events. So there is that as well, but what we're talking about here is hidden trauma, which is apparently harmless things that contribute to those feelings of I'm going to die. So and that then impact, like as Matt says continuously over the years, they build and build. So if your parents got upset one time and didn't talk to you, or a couple of times, that's not going to, depending on what other references are there, that's not going to do it. But if that was their coping skill, or if let's say your parents are worried about money, that can cause hidden trauma, or they are stressed at work, or the death of, one of the death of a parent or a friend of your parents, the effect on your parents will impact you. So there's a lot of components that determine one person developing a trauma response and another not, but certainly those are things that people overlook. If you've got obvious negative childhood experiences, memories of negative childhood experiences, change those. So change those first, and you may not need to change the rest. So I don't want people to feel overwhelmed. Well, if I've got to also address the silent treatment and this and that, change the obvious ones first, and then the rest may be okay. But if you're thinking, well, I don't know what it could be from my childhood, or I've changed all of those negative memories, then ask yourself those questions. How was I punished when I did something wrong? Bearing in mind the difference between the conscious and the unconscious parts of the brain, even though you may consciously understand why, and there was a good reason and all of that, the unconscious part of your brain cannot think that way. So that trauma may still have impacted, have been created there.